All right, everybody. Man, we're so glad that you guys are still tuning in with us. We are here for the post show, which is where we kind of go over the service and discuss some things in a little bit deeper way. My name is Perry, for those of you who don't know, and we have with us.
I'm Elizabeth.
I'm Kathy.
And I'm Andy. May the 4th be with you all.
Happy Star Trek Day. Live long and prosper, everyone.
Andy, is that right?
Yes, for her it is.
Oh, okay.
For,
For the weaker-minded ones, yes, it is.
for trying to annoy Andy on the pre-show, it was correct.
I
did a great
can't
job.
wait to go and see it to see how he responded. But all right, well, I'd love to start this off by just asking, what was the highlight of the whole service for you today? Could be the message, could be the music, could be the pre-show.
The pre-show is always fun when we get to riff back and forth, but the music was great today.
Awesome.
Yeah, and I thought your message was good, Perry.
Music great, message good. I see how it goes.
Hey, I can't just say great because you have one more to go. I want to.
Oh, okay. How about you, Elizabeth? What's your highlight?
I don't know. I liked messing with Andy on the pre-show,
That was pretty fun.
but
I responded
Yeah.
well. I didn't.
I know he didn't overreact in the typical Andy overreacting, but I know that he knew that I was trying to get his reaction.
Oh,
So it's like,
someone tipped him off.
No.
no, it's just because he spends enough time with me to know that it's like me and you, Perry.
Yeah, that's true.
Yep.
If anyone were to be a fly on the wall when Perry and I are at work together,
Yeah, they'd be like, what?
what is going on?
Yeah, for sure. For sure. How about you, Kathy? What was your highlight of the service as a whole?
Well, I think it was a wonderful service. I love the series because for me, I think dealing with mourning and grief is so important for us to educate people that it is different for everyone, that it takes time, that it's important to sit in it for a while, and that it does come in waves.
Yeah.
And there's just no. We used to think, oh, you know, denial, acceptance, all these, but all those things come at different times for different people,
Yeah.
and it's really a sacred thing to take the time to mourn, and so that you can remember and go forward.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, that's a good point. Have you ever experienced that in your own life where you were hit with grief in just a weird way? And if so, would you be willing to share?
Oh yeah, I mean, that's so close to home. I lost my mom 3 years ago, just this week, and then my brother a year ago, and so it still comes. You can see
Yeah.
him in my voice. I mean, just. You know, I have a shirt of my brother's, and when I'm having a day where I'm just feeling bummed, I just wrap up in it and just feel him. And, you know, you could just, like, I go and drive in the spring, I see peonies, I think of my mom. You know,
Yeah.
that was her favorite flower. And just the different times, like, it could just be a song or a smell or something, and all of a sudden you're just back there remembering something. But, and, you know, I used to be, when I was so busy, I didn't let myself feel those things. Oh, I got to move on, I got to do. But now that I'm retired and I've had time, this is the first time I've really taken the time to really grieve people that I've loved, that I've lost. And it's been a very cathartic and healing thing for me.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. You know, in many ways, I've always kind of thought maybe I was a little broken when it came to grieving, because most of the people that I have lost in the past were definitely at the end of a normal lifespan.
Yeah.
They also all knew Jesus. And so a lot of times I'd be like, you know what? I'm going to miss my grandma.
Yeah.
But man, she's in such a better place now. And so there have been times where I've just been like, everyone else is crying, but I'm kind of glad for her. And then so I would feel weird about that, but that's where that one size fits all thing is. Like sometimes it's just different for us. And then of course other times, like I said in the message, where it's like, whoa, what happened here? How about you guys? Before we jump on to another question, do you guys have any stories like that or situations where mourning or grief just hit you weird?
I feel like I don't really have anything that like jumps out as like a weird specific moment. It's just it more so I feel like I get so like caught in like the wave of it, you know,
Yeah.
like where it's like I'll get really busy and I'm just like not really thinking about it, and then it's like it comes out of nowhere, but then it's like, you know, like it's like a weird up and down, to which then I like get stuck in this mindset of like, wait, like I thought I like had processed that all, like why is it affecting me?
Right.
Because then it will like, I'm the type of person to where like if I'm stressed out or if something is just like my brain can't comprehend or it's overwhelmed, I don't always, like, I let things go. And it's like little things, like I'll like stay up super late and like not get enough sleep, or I'll, like little things to where like then I'm not taking care of myself as I should be, to which then it just is like this whole cycle of like, whoa, how'd I get here? And it's like, and then, like it's how do you get out of that?
Right.
It's like a weird process.
Yeah, for sure. Andy, you got anything, Dad?
I mean, kind of like you. It's one of those things where most of the people that have passed have thankfully been at the end of their lifespan. I knew where they were going when they left
Yeah.
here. So it's kind of hard to really place it, but so I'm very thankful for that. I am. And it's one of those things I think now that I'm a little bit older, like you had mentioned, and we had talked about last week, as I'm getting older, I'm getting better at processing those things. If something like that were to happen, like with a close friend or somebody that I wasn't expecting, I think I'd be able to mourn better. But again, you won't know until you're in it. But I think having that mindset of mourning is good. It's not, you don't want to just push it down. It's good to let that stuff out.
Yeah, for
At
sure.
least going into something like that can help when those things happen. So
Right. Yeah. Well, this question kind of ties in with that. What would you say to someone who is in the middle of their own struggles right now to encourage them?
Well, I definitely wouldn't be like Job's friends.
Yeah. With friends like that.
You know what's funny though? I think we've all been that moment when we're feeling down about something, even though we weren't nearly as down as Job was. But we've had those friends who are just like, I'm like, read the room, dude. Like they don't
no
get
kidding.
it. And it's one
Yeah,
of those things
for
where I'm
sure.
like, I'm mindful of that. It's like, don't try to. Sometimes as guys, we want to fix things. I know about you.
Yep.
So it's one of those things where I have to tell myself, don't go in there and try to fix it. Just be there for them and when they ask you for your help, that's when that's what I've been doing lately with stuff like that. Is like, hey, I'm here for you, but if you need anything, let me know. And I try to leave it at that, because if I don't, I'll just start going and let's do this and I'll make you feel better with this. And it's just, no, they need to do it at their own pace and come to me when they're ready for something. So just growth, but hard, because you want to get in there and fix it and make it better for them right away.
Yep. I've had to many times either ask straight up, like, hey, what are you looking for here? Like, do you want me to just listen? Like, how can I help you, basically, before just jumping into fix it mode? Because that is definitely my natural bent too. Yeah. What about you ladies? What would you say to someone who's struggling right now?
Well, I think it's important to acknowledge that their struggle is real.
Yeah.
And just let them know you see them, you're here with them, and you're available, just like you said. And ask them what they need. And I think that's important too. Like you said, sometimes my son wants he calls, and wants to vent or something, and then I automatically want to fix it and make it better for him. And one day he said, "Mom, I don't need advice. I just want you to hear me." And I'm like, "Oh, thank you, for telling me." So now when he calls or other people call, it just taught me to say, are you just wanting me to listen, or do you need advice? Because then I'm clear about what they need in that moment. Because sometimes they say advice, and sometimes they say, no, I just need to vent. Okay, clear. And I think that's just being honest and helping the communication better. But I think always acknowledging that someone's struggle is real for them, and that you are there for them, and whatever they need, I'm here for you to help you in this moment. So.
Right. Yeah. You got anything, Elizabeth?
I feel like, I don't know. I never know what to say, if I'm being so honest. I
That's okay.
fake it till I make it. But I feel like a lot of I'm in kind of like a weird spot where if it's like a lot of my close friends that are like close to my age, like we go through similar-ish things. It's like very rarely it's like the really heavy, like, oh, I lost someone, or oh, lost my job out of nowhere. It's not what would be the typical like adult hard thing. And not that it's not hard, but it's more of I feel like a lot of it right now is a lot of just more mental stuff. And I know that's not just people my age, but that's just I feel like the most natural, typical, stereotypical thing that people struggle with right now. And so I feel like a lot of what I try to do, because I don't even know what I need when I need help in those moments. So I think honestly I just try to almost be a distraction. Like I know that's not like always healthy, but you know, like sometimes you just want to get your mind off of
Sure.
something. And so
Yeah.
I'm just like, hey, do you want to go get coffee or go get lunch and
Yeah.
we can just talk about stupid weird things, or we can talk about it. You know, like it's like this space to where like we can talk about it, but it's also like I can come up with random crap to talk
Yeah.
about. Like,
I'm really good at that too. Yeah.
you know, so it's just like, I don't know, like, you know, I don't know what is like something to say because it's so situational on what people struggle with, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Sounds like just being there, like
Yeah.
they did for 7 days. Sometimes it's just
Yeah.
let them know that you're there and you care, huh?
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. Have you ever been in a situation where either you or someone else assumed you were at fault for the tragedy that you were in? Kind of like what Job's friends did to him. And it's okay if it's not. That's kind of awesome. But
I think it's more so like I blame myself. Like
Yeah.
it's not like I have other people blame me, but it's like I'll be like, it's my fault like that I'm in this situation. When like a lot of the time it's not. It's just like something bad happened to me, and then it's like I have that moment, and then I like spiral from it, and then it's like I'm like, oh, like
right.
I don't know. I feel like I don't have people in my life be like, oh, that was your fault. Like you suck. But
Hey,
it's
you
more
got me.
just like
That's what I'm good at.
I know, but I just don't listen to him. But you know, like I don't have that because I try to not surround myself with people that would say that intentionally or unintentionally. You know, like there's that like
Yeah.
people don't mean to say stuff, but you know, like I feel like it's more so like in my head.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely have been more of my own critic as well
Yeah.
with some stuff like that, where I've definitely, I mean, like, for example, I've moved a lot. And, you know, in the moment, I don't necessarily think of this, but sometimes I've reflected back and be like, okay, was this my fault, or is this truly God moving me, you know, from place to place and place? So I've tried to reflect on some of that, and I think some of that can be healthy. But there is definitely a side of where you start to get to almost like a self-loathing or depression in yourself. Where, I mean, you see this a lot in people today. I think you mentioned mental health. There are a lot of people who just don't love themselves, and sometimes that's because they're blaming themselves for something. And so, if I'm going to err on one, it seems like I have more of an issue myself as well, blaming myself for things that I may not be responsible for. So I can relate with that for sure. How about you two? You ever have that happen?
Thankfully, no. Kind of like what you're saying. I'm harder on myself than others, but and I've cultivated a friend group that I know they're not going to just be like, "Hey, moron, good job."
Your
it was your
nerd
fault."
friends?
My nerd friends. Yeah, we're all nerds for what we like. Elizabeth Perry's a sports nerd. I'm a sports and Star Wars nerd. So yeah, we get it.
Star Trek.
Yeah.
Live long and prosper. But yeah, so it's basically that stuff. And I think going into things, I know there's so many little nuance as I've gotten older. There's so many little things that go into it. Like I would never begin to tell somebody they're the fault of their own. You know,
Sure.
It's just one of those things. It's like treat others how you'd like to be treated. I'm like, I don't want to hear that because I know I'm telling it to myself and I already get it. So I don't think I've ever told somebody, unless it was somebody that, you know, a friend who did something really, really dumb. And I was like, hey, you kind of messed up, but it's also, we're still here for you. Like that doesn't mean we're not friends anymore, but I can't just let that go.
Right.
And I have to be like, hey, you messed up, but I'm here. And when you want to try to dig yourself out of it, I'll help in any way I can.
That's loving people well, actually.
Yeah.
I think as a parent, and you know, those that are parents, I think we often look at things, or if our kids get in trouble, or we just, you know, life isn't the way we thought it would be for us or for them.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's easy to think, what did I do wrong? Or did I stay in, was I doing this too long? Or did I miss them too much? You know, in the busyness of this or that. And, you know, I've had to circle back and account to my kids. Like I was just one of these do people when I was younger, running, you know, working full time. I did a youth group out of my house for 6 years, and I had 3 kids. I was a single mom. It was a lot. And then later, as I had conversations with my kids when they're older, they sometimes are like, sometimes we felt like you missed us, but like you were helping all the other kids sometimes, and
Sure.
I had to account for that. And just like, and so I'm careful of that. And I've asked my kids over the years, what could I have done better? Or I feel like I missed you this. Is that true? Or am I just holding on to this? Is this a story I'm making up in my head? And we've had great conversations about like where they maybe did feel missed, or where, Mom, that was never an issue, and yet I'm thinking it was, and I felt guilty about it. So I just think having honest conversations over the years with different people in your life and your relationships, and I've had the privilege of doing that with my father over the last several years, and because I've gotten to visit him more. He's 92, leaving for a cruise on the Queen Mary 2 tomorrow.
Oh, nice.
Across the
Oh,
ocean for 3 weeks. He and his wife are amazing that way. But so I just think all the different relationships, it's good to go back and talk about those things, because sometimes we do hold on to things that they don't even think about, and so it's good to clear the air sometimes.
Yeah. So let's change the question just a little bit. Have you ever had a situation where rather than blaming it on yourself, you were maybe blaming God, or questioning some of the things that Job questioning God's justice, his presence, his goodness? Did you ever have a situation like that? And if so, are you willing to share?
I do. I was putting on a youth event, and, feeling, you're in ministry, you feel like you're doing God's work and everything's, going great. And one of my children was assaulted and stabbed 6 times. And it was a very scary, awful thing. And here I'm like, what the heck? God, we're all working and doing ministry work. We're like, everything seems like, why? Like where was your hedge of protection? And so, I mean, it never made me not love God and trust him fully, but I never walked away from God in it, but I had a lot of questions, and I understand when Job's questioning, because I felt that way, like, why, but I also see that God is so faithful all the time, and God does sometimes give us warnings of things that may happen, and some of those things that were talked about, like, I just look back now and think, oh, God was showing us something, and but it was a hard season for everyone in my family, and because it made us really question. And I was one of these people, I always trust God. I was just reckless, honestly. If my daughter or grandkids did some things I used to do, I would just pick up hitchhikers, do all the different crazy things and all the time, and just because I just wanted to speak God's word and get people saved. And but I was very reckless, in my youth, and so, but that made me like take note, like you can't always be like Pollyanna spiritually either. You do have to use wisdom. That
Sure.
And I think I did usually ask God, but things could have turned out bad for me at times.
Right.
But I think it took me a while just to fully trust God again, and it made me mature spiritually to think you can't just say God will always protect me, because we have an enemy. And someone out there to steal, kill, and destroy. So we do have to, like it says in Scripture, to be mindful and watchful and to be wise. So, during that's what I learned from it, was to be more wise and not be so Pollyanna with my faith.
Yeah, sure. Well, that's not been a main point that we've focused on in this series, but it's been kind of a sub point of like, there's an enemy, and he, has a will too. And we don't totally understand the dynamic there of like, okay, well, yeah, God is all powerful, but there's this enemy who's fighting against him and fighting against us. And he does some terrible things.
He's crafty.
Absolutely. Yeah. I get that. Yeah. For me, I, when I tore my ACL in college, I was really frustrated with God, and I just questioned him. It's like, what the heck? Like, I'm not even playing sports anymore. Like I'm just playing for fun now. And now why would you allow this to happen to me? And I remember questioning him, and it took me a while to just kind of accept, like, okay, bad things happen to good people. And also in that situation, I had to take some ownership too. Like I had to be like, all those injuries that you just kind of played through in high school, And you know, all those times where you probably should have maybe taken a break, your body can only take so much. So in my particular situation, I was able to, over time, once I removed myself from it, to be like, yeah, I may have been partially at fault for this. So, I definitely had some issues with God when it first happened, though, for sure. Yeah. How about you two? Got anything?
Yeah. I think honestly, I'm still kind of working through something, and it's more so like the purpose of it, because 4 years ago, I just had someone take advantage of me in a not great way, and it's just like the why,
Yeah.
because it's like I still struggle with so much because of that, like
Yeah.
what stemmed from that, and it's like what do I do with that? Like
Yeah.
how do I fully heal from that? But then like, am I supposed to help others that are going through something? Like, but it's just like I haven't. So it's just like
Yeah.
I'm sitting with all of this, just like, why did that happen, and why can't I heal from it fully?
Yeah.
Because I feel like from that situation, like my trust in general, not just like, I feel like it affected my trust with God just because it affected my trust in general, but like I feel like it just affected my ability to trust.
Yeah.
And so it's like, then I struggle with like relationships and friendships, and it's just like, what, like this one moment in my life, it's
Yeah.
like 4 years ago,
Yeah.
it's still like, what, why?
Yeah.
And so I feel like I'm really struggling with just like I don't think that I've ever like lost any faith, or like I feel like my trust has been like hurt a little bit, but I think that's just like natural. But it's just like I struggle with the why,
Yeah.
the purpose, and
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And first of all, thank you for sharing. I'm sure that wasn't easy. And I know that there are many women especially, but even some men who've gone through similar things. And the question of why is understandable. I think it's important for us to just remember that God's heart breaks for you in that as well. And he did not want that to happen to you or anyone, which I know that's the hard thing though. 'Cause like, well, if God didn't want it to happen, why didn't he keep it from happening? And that's a much bigger issue that we could get into with the idea of free will.
Yeah.
And, I hate that someone chose to do that to you. And that person is the person at fault for sure. And I just want to say I'm sorry. We love you. And sometimes you don't have an answer to why
yeah,
for a long time. And I heard a pastor once say we can die in our whys, because we don't understand. I think the benefit is that when we look at scripture, we do see that God uses those tragedies that people put on us at some point. So I think the hope is that there will be someone out there someday that you're going to be able to come alongside and relate in a way that I'm not going to be able to. So, but I also want you to know that we love you and we care for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Andy, you got anything?
I mean, good luck following that.
Yeah.
I mean, sure. I mean, I've mentioned it on here before, but because you said you've moved quite a bit.
Yeah.
I have been in the same house since Andrew and I got married. It's one of those things where we just don't feel like picking up and moving. Yeah. So there's times where I'm like, am I broken? Because I'm just stuck. Yeah, but I know I'm not, because I'm happy with what I've made. But
Yeah.
So those same things, but also with work, when a couple of years ago, when my current company was leaving, and it was like, that's where I saw myself, through the end. And I was like, what's going to happen now?
Yeah.
And it was I mean, granted, I see where I'm at now and I know what God's purpose was. And it was
Right.
like, yeah, this is where you're meant to be now. But
Yeah.
when you're in it, you can't see the forest through the trees. So,
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think that's honestly the biggest encouragement we can give anybody who's stuck right now.
Yeah.
I mean, it is kind of what we mentioned to Elizabeth just now. Is like, we don't necessarily have an answer right now.
No.
But our hope and our prayer is that in time, with some perspective and experience, there can be healing, but also that we can see how God can use it for good in the end. But man, when you're in the middle of it, when you're still healing from it, it is so difficult.
incredible.
The
Now-
one thing that's brought me comfort with things like that, and with, the story I shared, is that, Jesus was perfect. He did no wrong. And yet he was beaten, crucified, and suffered more than any of us will suffer. And as tragic that it is, it brings me comfort because we aren't perfect. And so there is an enemy in this world, and we will be hurt,
Yeah.
And I do believe that he does go after those who are serving, and like people whose families are serving tend to, you see a lot of things happen because, why go after someone that is out in the living their life according to the world instead of
Yeah.
those that are trying to
Yep.
bring Jesus and healing and peace to others. So that comforts me just because he was willing to suffer and do all that. And yet we still are going to experience bad things in our lives at times that are painful that we don't understand why, but knowing that he suffered, it, and he was perfect. Like, we can't expect not to ever suffer when, we aren't
Right.
perfect. You know what I'm saying?
That's
I
a
don't know
really
if that
good
makes
point.
sense,
Yeah,
but
absolutely, it does.
when someone said that to me during that time, it was like, oh gosh, yes, why do I think I should never have pain, And doesn't make it right. It doesn't mean God likes it.
Not at all.
And his heart hurts for us, but
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's why I wanted to close the message up the way I did with just the hope of Jesus, the fact that he has gone through it too, but that it had an overall purpose though too, to save us. And so hopefully that was comforting for those who watched the message, to know that our Savior has gone through it too and has had tragedy. And I would guess that there might be some questions that are brought up as a result of our conversation and even this series. And so if you have any questions, please feel free to submit those. We have an anonymous question area on our website that is available. Please feel free to put any question that you might have for me or Pastor Dave to be able to answer. But just a reminder, if you want someone to follow up with you, don't put it there. Make sure you use the Connect card, because many of these types of things that we're talking about really do warrant some follow-up and potentially some help from some other people that are better at this than I am. That's for sure. And so please feel free to submit any questions there to the anonymous question or our Connect card so that we can help in any way possible. But until then, thank you guys so much for tuning in. Just know that we love you and that God loves you too. We'll see y'all later.